One. Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Track. As I say in every intro, I'm looking forward to this one. This one, I think I'm looking forward to it maybe 10 times more because of who's on the line. We go way back and there's a lot to cover in this talk. It's gonna be a fun one. Make sure you check us out on YouTube and Supercross Live. The social channels, obviously on Instagram, we dropped the link for you there. So go back and listen to the episodes we've done. They've been a lot of fun, but this one's gonna be extra fun. I'm predicting a good time. It's Matt Walker. Moto X Compound is how I'm gonna introduce him. But man, I can introduce you as Matt Walker, the former racer. I could just call you Stalker. I could go so many ways with this, but we'll just start with it's Matt. What's up, Matt?
Yep. What's up, man? How you guys doing? Yo, 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 as I like to start my videos off with, I'm excited to be here, man. I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
It's going to be good. So I'll preview the first part of this like this. I know early Matt Walker. I raced you. Dude, I remember racing you at Lake Whitney on 85s in the mud, dude. So I know you from being a kid. I know you as a pro. I got a really funny story I'm going to talk to you about as a pro, something that you and I, just something pretty, actually it ties into a really unique stat for me. Like probably one of my coolest stats of my life. You almost ruined it. We'll get to that. Okay. And then there's Matt, the coach, the trainer, now race promoter. It's like, dude, you have such a rad story. We're going to get into all that, but I kind of want to use this opportunity to bridge it because I know kids that go to your facility and they know you as the coach and they're like, God, I love Matt Walker. And I'm like, do you know Matt's racing story? Not really. I'm like, oh my God, racing story. Yeah. Incredible. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to tell a lot of stories here, but let's start, yes, with the beginning, the racing career. You had a lot of success as a pro, but in the amateur days, I don't really know. I know I raced with you a lot, but you were East Coast, I was West Coast. So we didn't like intertwine too much. So kind of take me through those early days as an amateur. And I know how much that matters now because you coach so many amateurs, but take me through your amateur career a little bit.
Well, my amateur career, you know, being from Georgia was, you know, it's a lot different than it is these days. You know, back then, Loretta's was big, but we had Loretta's and Mini O's, and that was really the only two races that were major, if you want to call it that, that we were able to go to. So I you know, I did the amateur thing. I won a few Loretta Lynn titles, but you know, being at my age, it was always you know, riders like Travis Pastrana and, you know, these names, Justin Buckaloo and Ernesto Fonseca. And there were a lot of good riders in that era. And so it was real easy for someone like myself from Georgia to kind of get overshadowed by a lot of these, you know, good riders. You know, so yeah, we did the whole amateur thing but that, I think it has a lot to do with my career path now at 39 years old and the kind of the way that I run my business and my plans as a promoter, I guess I should say. It has a lot to do with the way that I was brought up, you know what I mean, and racing and enjoying it at a local level and at a how do I say it, like with Georgia never really being on the map. You know, and I always use this as a reference. I'm like, you know, we're right. We touch Tennessee and we touch Florida, the two biggest amateur races in the world, but yet Georgia has never had anything. So sooner or later, there's got to be somebody that's got to step up and put Georgia on the map. You know what I mean? And so I just remember as a kid, like we just never really got a whole lot of time to shine. And so, you know, but as far as amateur goes, yeah, I mean, we did it and traveled the world the country, the Southeast, the Northeast, and those are the memories that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? My parents and my sister, I'm sure just like you and your brother, we traveled the country, you know, and it was a great time.
It is cool looking back, right? I mean, obviously,
yeah, absolutely.
There's things that you wish were better. There's things that maybe went better than they should have at times, but you look back and you're like, God, man, like I do value those. You don't really realize that maybe in your 20s, but now I'm probably 6 months younger than you. But now I look back and I'm like, God, driving across the country in the box van didn't seem cool then, but kind of seems cool now. I kind of miss that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't have cell phones, obviously, and you had a map, and you looked out the window and you saw things, and it was just a really good time, and also, like you said, we went to Lake Whitney, and that was always in March. It was actually this time of the year, you know what I mean? That Lake Whitney was always going on. And so that was a cool time because you got to see riders from the West Coast and people from Texas and people that you don't normally race against. And so it was always fun to go to Texas, and it was always fun to travel the country, and again, no matter I feel like for the rest of my life, I'll remember those times, good.
It's cool. Let's get into the early part of the pro career. I think I'm going to be right with this number, but I remember watching you at Southwick one year. I think you were number 80.
Yeah.
On a Yamaha. And I remember to me, I thought that was a major breakout ride because I knew you as a kid. So I was like, damn, Walker. Am I right on that? Was it Southwick number 80 on the Yamaha?
Yeah, Southwick. So I had won Loretta's in the A class, and all these kids that were in my class, like Billy Payne and Buckaloo and shit, man, just so many other guys, Fonseca, and they all got these rides, right? So we go to Loretta's in '98, and I had won, and everybody got rides except me, and so that next year I was a privateer. We were on basic stock Yamahas, and but I had always heard stories about how badass Southwick was. Like Southwick and Unadilla, gnarliest tracks on the planet. Like I'd always heard stories about how rough and tough that track was. And so back in those days, I was 17 years old. I was living with Ezra Lusk, and we were training with, we were all training at his place with myself, and Ezra Lusk and Ricky Carmichael were prepping for this race. And I kept thinking, dude, you guys are going to kill us. Like, they're older, quite a bit older, and they have done that race. And I kept thinking, and so they knew what it was going to take to win. And so I just followed their program, and I thought, they're going to freaking kill me. I remember flying on the plane to Southwick thinking, I can't race. I'm too tired. And those guys went on, and Ricky won both motos, Yogi won both motos, and then I had gotten third in the first, and I got tired the second, but yeah, I was 17 years old, pretty much bone stock bike, third place, and it was my first time ever on the podium, and I thought, this is life, this is amazing stuff, and I'll never forget it. That was my first ever time being on a podium. I thought, this is amazing. But I also thought, all right, I got third. It's pretty good. Like, maybe I should get a ride now, right? And it didn't really work out like that.
They're all going to start calling.
That's what I thought. 17 years old, and I thought, oh shit, here it goes. And then so we left there, and we went to Budds Creek. And I'm freaking winning. I'm going. I'm leading Budds Creek. And so that was my dad's first time ever being at a pro race, and my dad was freaking pumped, right? He'd never been to a pro race before, and he just wanted to help. And so he taped up all my air boxes, and I had a mechanic, a friend that went with me, but my dad, he taped up the air boxes, and he did all this stuff, and he just really wanted to be hands-on because I just gotten third the weekend before. And we go there, and again, Budds Creek is a mutter, and I didn't get the whole shot, but I'm winning, I'm gone. And the bike grenades, my dad taped everything up, and it held water like a fishbowl. And so it sucked water, and that was the only motor we had. So it was a sucky way to end it, but it was also cool. Fox did a calendar from that race of me winning, or leading, I should say, in the mud and the rain. And that first year, 99, that you're talking about, when I was a privateer, I'd have to say ranks up there with probably the memory wise, it ranks up there. That was a good time.
Now, I know things had happened probably from then before the pro circuit years with Mitch, because what I'm about to talk about is 02. Is I remember something about my life and your life coming together in 02. But the story that I've heard about you is like one of the coolest ones. I know we've talked about it. I think I had you on Race Day Live a couple of years ago. We talked about it, but you wanted to ride for Mitch, and I don't know if he wasn't answering his phones or what he was doing, but you're like, I'm gonna show up in his office. I ain't leaving this office until you give me a shot. Tell that story a little bit and how crazy it was, because I remember it. I mean, it worked. You got the. You told Mitch, I'm gonna wax your dudes.
Well, I don't know if I said that, but
you implied
at
it.
that point you'll say kind of anything, right? Like if you were, but before that, before I did this thing, you know, and people say, oh, you're Matt Walker the stalker because of that. I was called the stalker when I was a kid, like 60s and 80s. So that it didn't have no correlation with that story. But the pro circuit story was a crazy story because, you know, I tried to get on with pro circuit the year that I won Loretta's, and that didn't happen. And then the year that in 99 when Ricky was on the team and he was pitching it, and there was always that one guy right above me, right? Like my name was in the hat is what they would always say. So in pro racing, it's always, well, your name's in the hat, you know? And so I was always in the hat, and just never, they never pull my name. And so I did a privateer deal for a few years with Honda on a satellite team. And unfortunately, those were the worst years that Honda ever made a dirt bike. And I respect Honda a lot, but those were the worst years. And so
I rode those.
It was just, you know, it made me not want to ride a dirt bike, you know, and I don't even want to go in. It was just a depressive time in my life. And so, you know, I had all but quit racing dirt bikes. I had thought, and because it was like November, and a friend of mine that was my mechanic in 99, he just called Mitch Payton himself, and he said, hey, he leaves Mitch a voicemail at the office and says, hey, this is Jason Ezel. I need you to call me back right now. Hangs up the phone, gives him his number, hangs up the phone. And Mitch is like, who is this redneck from Georgia? I don't know this guy. So Mitch, out of curiosity, calls him back. And so anyway, when Mitch calls the guy back, my friend goes, you need to put Matt Walker on your team. And Mitch says, oh yeah, why? And my friend, you know, as a friend would do, he says, well, he can do, you know, this, that, and the third. And Mitch says, well, if Matt Walker wants to ride on my team, why don't Matt Walker call? And my friend said, well, I don't know, you know, maybe I'll ask him, but are you interested? He said, you know what, I might be interested. That's what Mitch said. And so when my friend called, he said, hey, I just talked to Mitch Payton. And he said, and I'm like, man, you are so full of it, dude. You didn't talk to Mitch Payton. You didn't talk to Mitch Payton. Because Mitch is different now than he was back then. The new Mitch that you guys see now with kids and a wife, and he is like 360 from what he was back then. But anyway, I was like, you didn't call Mitch Payton. But anyway, he did. And so I started calling because he said, hey, if Matt Walker wanted to ride in my bikes, he would call himself. That's what Mitch said. So Mitch likes to play these games. And so I called and I called and I called and I called and I called. And I would call the office and they say, well, who is it? And I'd make up a name. This is so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like you get desperate, right? And he just never would answer the phone. And so I did the Bercy Supercross, and I flew out and did I don't know, some Italian Supercrosses, and he still never would call. And it got so bad, Daniel, that I would be in a taxi cab. I can remember being in a taxi cab in Italy and using the taxi cab driver's cell phone to call Mitch Payton, because I knew he knew my number, but he didn't know this damn guy beside me's number, right? And but he wouldn't answer, and I'm like, I can't give up, you know. And so I had no money, and I had just enough Sky Miles saved up from those trips to Italy and Bercy. And so I flew to California. I took a rental car. I wasn't old enough, but I took a taxi from John Wayne to Mitch Payton's office. And I sat there on that curb, and the handicap parking, it was a handicap parking sign. I knew it was his spot. I sat right there on that curb all night long. And I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited. And about 9 o'clock that morning, that white Chevy Astro van pulls in, and he rolls out, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to get a ride." And he's like, a ride where? You know, like, you need a lift? Or I said, "No, I'm here to get a ride. I want a bike. I want to ride," you know? And he said, "Oh my God," you know, and Day in the Dirt had just happened. And so they had this roached out, I say roached out, it was a pretty used KX 125 that I think Jeff Matazevich or Ty Davis or somebody like that had used for that Day in the Dirt race. Something like Day in the Dirt or something at Elsinore. Anyway, it was a KX 125 that they just had sitting over in the corner. And it took a lot of convincing, but he said, "I'll let you ride this bike, and I'll give you a couple of weeks to figure it out, but you're responsible for your gas and where you're going to keep it, and you're responsible for all this. And in 2 weeks, I'll go to the Cowie track and I'll watch you. And if you're good enough, you know, maybe we'll put you on." And the reason why there was an opening in the spot was because Mitch, it was the first year that James Stewart was racing. 02 would have been his first year. And James was originally going to be on Pro Circuit, but he said, "No, I want to be on a factory team." And so when James switched up and went to a factory team, it left a position open. And they had Mike Brown, they had Shea Bentley, and they had Bobby Bonds. And Bobby Bonds was kind of hurt. Shea Bentley was always hurt. And really they had Mike Brown. So they kind of needed a guy. And but I wasn't in a position to be in any position. I just wanted an opportunity, right? And so I freaking rode and I rode and I rode, and I had no money. And I borrowed a truck from someone, and I stayed at the roached out motel that you could ever in your life have imagined in Corona. And the room number was 122. That's where I got 122 from. But I was in 122, and I stayed in that room, and I devoted every freaking day. I know 2 weeks doesn't sound like a lot, but I did everything I could. And in 2 weeks, we rode the bike. He said, "Yeah, you know, I think we can do a Supercross only deal for you." And I was like, I thought I'd won the lottery. You know, I thought my life is complete. But, you know, Daniel, I don't think anybody would ever believe me if I told them this, but this is the truth. In my mind, I always believed that I was going to ride for Pro Circuit. It's the craziest story, and I don't expect you to believe me, but in my mind, I always felt like I don't know. I had this feeling that I would ride for Pro Circuit one day, and it happened. And so I had already planned that meeting and what I was going to say and how I was going to talk to him and I had planned on what he was going to say to me and how I was going to say it back. And then it happened. And it's the scariest feeling, because they take you in. When you were at Pro Circuit back then, they take you in this elevator, and it's a service elevator, and you go up to the top, and that's where Mitch does, like, he stores stuff and shit, like bikes. And anyway, it was scary, you know. They took me up in that elevator, and I went up there, and we sat on this table, and they said, "We're going to give you a shot, but we need to ask you this one question." And I thought, oh God, because years past, I was number 40. So after the year I was number 80, I was number 40. And I had put 40 ounce on the back of my pants that year, just being a joke, 40 ounce, because of the, like, drinking beer, like having a good time, 40 ounce. I thought it was funny. And he said, you know, we saw that you had 40 ounce, and, you know, we heard that you like to drink beer and this, that, the third, you like to have a good time. And he's like, listen, you ain't doing this shit on my team. Like, it's a no-no, right? It's a wrap. If you do any of that, you're out. If you do this, you're out. You do this, you're out. He said, but what we need to know, can you win one race? And I don't know why they put so much emphasis on winning one race. I would imagine it had something to do with bonuses. But him and Jimmy Perry both, because those two were in the office, they said, we need you to win one race. Can you win one race? And I said, and I was lying. Shit, I never led no Supercross race. You know, my best finish was 5th on those Hondas, and I'd only done a handful of Supercross races in my life. I didn't think I could win a race, but I wasn't going to say, nah, man, I can't win a race. Give this ride to somebody else. You know, I lied. I said, hell yeah, I can win a race. What are you talking about? I'm here. I can win this race.
You're like, one?
Give me the bike, bro.
You're like, one race? Bike. I'm going to win all of them.
That's all you want, one race. So anyway, and then they kept saying, well, you know, we really don't need you because James Stewart's riding the bike and he's actually riding our bike with Kawasaki. So then first they give it to me and then they start talking about James Stewart. I'm like, oh my God, you're going to on or am I off? Like, and then they said, go downstairs, pick out some gear. Cause back then they had like Shoei, like replica helmets on the shelf and like Alpine Star boots on the shelf. Like they had a little showroom floor. And they said, you know, get you some stuff together and you can't be wearing, I don't even know what gear I was wearing at that time, but you got to look the part. So anyway, I got a gear bag, I got some gear, I got some goggles, and that was it. You know, I was on pro circuit and it didn't go good. It was a lot of pressure on that team, you know, because it was a lot of pressure. Bobby Bonds got hurt off the rip. He got hurt. And so it was just me in the semi. And it was a lot of damn pressure, man.
Okay.
A lot of pressure.
You just teed up my story.
Okay, go ahead.
So
intro it.
It's so good what you just did.
All right, let's go.
So 2002, Anaheim 3. I actually set an AMA record. So riders had at that point ridden both classes and made the main in both classes before. I know Isaiah Johnson had done, I mean, a bunch of people had done it, but nobody had ever done it on a 4-stroke yet. So Anaheim 3, I ended up making the 125 main on my 250 4-stroke and the 250 main on, I don't know if it was a 426 or 450, but I made both mains that night. And Davey Coombs comes up to me on the starting gate and is like, Daniel, you just set an AMA record. You're the first rider in sports history to make both mains in the same night on a 4-stroke. The reason I made that main is because I got 4th in the LCQ in the 125 class. Now on the last lap of that LCQ, here comes Matt Walker behind me. And you hit me so hard in the last corner that you actually like broke my shift lever off, knocked my bike into first, and I went wide open off the finish line, jumping first, came up short, almost broke both wrists and both legs.
But you made it.
I made it, and you didn't. You didn't even make the main that night on pro circuit, right?
Yeah.
Now, that was cool for me, bad for you, but here's my trivia question. What place did you get at the next race?
I won.
You won the Houston Supercross.
Yeah.
From no main, you won the next one.
Yeah. That was a crazy story. That was a crazy story.
You remember hitting me in that corner.
That was a crazy story. I do remember that. And just so you know, I didn't make the main the weekend before in Phoenix either. We had a mechanical issue and something else happened. I think it was Phoenix. Whatever the weekend was before, I didn't make the main there either. And so it was 2 weekends. Listen, 2 weekends, I didn't make the main. I crashed or something happened. And then here's this opportunity. They made jokes on me. My own team, Mitch would be like, never wanna. He'd be like this, never wanna. How did he say it? He's like, we thought we were going to win something about a main event. We won a gas card. Remember they gave out the gas cards back then.
Yeah.
Won the gas card. And when I did track walks, they would make me go on the podium and like, hey, go, Jimmy Perry, hey, go walk on the podium so you can get a feel for what it feels like, you know, to get on the podium. And so they make me walk up on the podium, and like it was hazing, you know, like it wasn't. And so then we go to Anaheim, and I didn't make the main, and you did, and then we went on a we went on a 6-week break after that, right? 6-week break. I thought, these guys, if they hadn't have given me their word that they were going to keep me for Supercross, they should have cut me loose, man. They would have, they should have cut me loose. I would have been working heat and air with my dad in South Georgia. You know what I'm saying? But 6 weeks, guys, listen, I freaking dedicated every single day of my life, everything that I had, I dedicated my life to that Supercross racing and training, and I thought, this is it. They had already hired Eric Sorby to come in from France, and they had all but replaced me. And I did so many laps, man. And if it was, you know, Shea Bentley, when I mentioned his name, we lived like 20 minutes away from each other, and Ezra had moved to Atlanta, so he lived close. And so Ezra and I raced, I trained together. And I mean, for 6 weeks, I did nothing but what it took. And when we went to Houston, I didn't make I had to go to the LCQ. And I was like, here we go, LCQ again. And I wish you could have seen the face. Like it's like you know, the analogy, like a redheaded stepchild. That's how I felt. Like Eric Sorby was here, and he was their new guy, and they just just this feeling, you know. And I just felt
like an obligation to them,
exactly. I felt an obligation. I felt like I was just this obligation that they just had to see through, because they had their word, right? They gave me their word. And so we go to the LCQ, and I think one of those Johnson brothers may have been winning or something, and I was in second or third, and I thought, man, I should just stay here, be safe, like make it in. And then I thought, no, I'm gonna win. I'm just gonna win. I've never won an LCQ, so I'm gonna win. So I pass for the lead. I go winning. I win the LCQ, and then we go to the main, and I'm lined up way the hell on the outside, and then I come out pretty good, and it felt like I was in a dream. Like it felt like I was in a dream. Like it really did. And then when I felt like I was practicing. Like I got in the lead, like on the third lap, and I just checked out. I won by a long, like 15 seconds, stupid amount of time I won by. And I just thought, this is not even happening. Like it was so weird, man. To this day was, you know, it's hard to fathom that win. It was special. It really was. I actually flew to Houston to go to the Spring-a-Ding racing at Underground 2 days ago, and that was the first time I'd been to Houston since that race. And
oh man,
of course the Astrodome's not there anymore, but I drove by it. I was looking, and it brought back a lot of memories, I'll tell you that. But I remember right after I got done with the race, I'm going to the podium, and I'm pumped, and Mitch and them are pumped. And I said, hey, you said if I won one race, you'd let me do the outdoors, one race. And then he started waffling like, yeah, well, you know, like, and that was the first thing I said to him. All I wanted was to ride outdoors, right? That was my deal. And they told me that if I won one race, that if I could win one, they'd give me a ride for the outdoors. But remember, now they just hired Eric Sorby. So, so yeah, so that was it. And what a crazy story it was.
Rad story. And then obviously I see behind you, the helmets all lined up. So you ended up being with Mitch for some time then, transitioned to the
Yeah, at
Moto.
that time it was, yeah, at that time, I'm missing a few, but I had this bad habit of just giving stuff away, like helmets and just stuff like that one helmet. I think it was the 122 one right there. I gave that one to Ron Heben, who used to work at Team Green when I was a kid. I gave that one to his son, and his son got, married and moved out, and it was still in his room. And I saw Ron at a race. I said, "Hey, what happened to that helmet I gave your kid 15 years ago?" He said, "Oh, it's still in his room." I said, "Well, hey, if he ain't using it anymore, let me get that back." So he's like, "Are you for real?" I'm like, "Yeah, I need it." So I had a bad habit of giving stuff away. And so I rode for Mitch in 02, 03, 04, and 05. And it was some of the best times of my life. It really was. And I owe a lot of where I'm at today. I owe a lot to that time of my life. I really do. More than Mitch Payton will ever know. I owe a lot to that, seeing what they do and how they work and how they operate and how they communicate. That I owe a lot to them. I really do.
Well, let's talk about where you're at today, because it's a good transition.
Yeah.
Moto X compound. You're killing it out there. I got a bunch of NorCal guys by me that go out there all the time. You got these ripper kids coming out of there. I do want to talk about one in particular, Drew Adams. I watched that kid a few months back. Jeez Louise. Just take me through the process, I guess, in just this creation, this place. Again, more for Georgia, putting Georgia even more on the map.
Yep.
It has now a lot, MTF, GPA. Georgia's a hot spot now. And what you've done is pretty awesome out there. Just take me through the creation of this monster place you got now. And this, again, a destination for a lot of these competitive kids that want to be good, that they're going to Moto X compound.
Yeah. So Moto X was just my creation. I had gotten hurt in racing when I was on Mitch's team. I had gotten hurt, and I had to quit racing. I was 23 years old when I got hurt. I quit racing when I was 24, and but I didn't have any. I didn't really have a lot of life skills as far as I say, like running a business, or knowing about business, or just a lot of stuff that you just kind of, when you race from the time you're 4 to the time you're 24, you just don't know. And I just didn't know. So when I stepped away from racing, it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go with things. And then I started training some kids, and I like training kids. But I didn't necessarily want a facility, because it's just a lot of responsibility. I didn't know if I wanted to be married to that, like to I just didn't know. I didn't know. So I just needed time. But what ended up happening, Daniel, was around right after the recession, around 2010, 2011, training facilities started to become a more norm, right? And I started losing riders that I was training to facilities, because here's the deal: they wanted convenience. Parents were choosing convenience over quality, and they wanted to be able to obviously sleep, train, do whatever at one spot. And so I still wasn't bought into it. Like, I had a great operation. I was leasing all these tracks around my town, and we were just hitting different ones. And I was doing that, and I liked the way I had it, but I knew I couldn't grow. And then I started losing a lot of money that I had made from racing because of the economy. And so finally I'd gotten a statement in the mail, and I said, "You know what, man, this is it. I can't see my IRAs and all this stuff. I can't see it just keep shitting away. I'm going to take this money and I'm going to buy some land. And so that's what I did. I took it and I bought some land, and it's right in the middle of Georgia. And then that was the thing. I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to buy this land for an investment, I want to make sure that I can, do something with it, right? So I want to make sure it was convenient, which my place is. It's right in the middle of the state. It's right off the interstate. I want to make sure it had water and elevation and things that you have, all these things that you have to have a great facility. I wanted to make sure we had it before I bought it. And also I'd heard all these stories for years about what people liked and what they didn't like about other places. And so I kind of had that in the back of my mind. I was like, well, people don't like to, for instance, people don't like to be at a facility where you camp and then the track's right on top of where you're camping and living, And so I thought, okay, well, when I have my track, I'm going to have all my camping spots up front, and I'm going to have all my tracks all the way in the back, so people can separate from where they work and where they live. And so, I'm just using this for reference and examples, but it took a long time to plan this thing out and do it right. Because once you put RV sites, and once you put septic, and once you build race shops and gyms and all these things that you got to have a successful facility, once you do it, it's got to be right, because there ain't no moving it. And I got lucky with Moto X. It's phenomenal. But what we've been able to do is take the things that I learned from racing and the skill sets that I watched Mitch Payton do, as far as getting up early and not leaving until the job is done and never settling. These guys, instilled a lot of good qualities in myself. And so I applied it to Moto X compound, and we've been successful, and I'm very proud of it. I will say that.
It's awesome what you've built. Again, I know people that have been out there from my area. They're just like, love it. They love the coaching. They love, for me, I watch what you do. You're creative. You do a lot of creative things with the bike and skill set. And I know, your speeches are good, dude. Matt Walker can get you rallied up. I've heard stories of those. I know you're great at that. At the same time, you got a bunch of different kids coming in that are all different, whatever. But tell me about this kid. Again, I have a kid that races, so I'm kind of getting back into the amateur, because I'm just kind of poking around, and we don't really do it all the way, but I'm still watching. You got a wild one there with that Adams kid.
He's good.
What do you do with a kid like that? That's like phenomenally talented, maybe above his age. He seems like he's further advanced than his age.
And he is. Okay, so let's go back to Moto X. Like, we are a diverse training facility. We are the most diverse training facility. Because I don't like to single people out. Like, I feel like we have a group for everybody. And if anybody wants to get better, I feel like we can give them a program to do that, right? And so with Drew Adams, he came to us at 7 years old. He's from Chattanooga, Tennessee, about 2 or 3 hours north of us. And he came to a camp, and you just know, like, we've been in this sport for a long time, and when you see kids that are different, and he's different, he's 13, but he's AMA 12, meaning that's how old he was. I think when January 1st is his AMA age. And so he's AMA 12, and he just wants it. He reminds me a lot of Ricky Carmichael. He works hard. He hangs out with older kids. He when he does motos, he does them with the older group. He's on an 85. They're on 250s and 450s. So he always has people that push him, but he's somebody that gets it. He loves to work. And he's gonna be one in the future for sure. No doubt about it. But he's also one that no one's perfect. You know what I mean? Like we go to these races and come back and we talk about what we got to work on and get better and just trying to advance the skill set, you know, at that age, the skills acquisition it's proven that these kids get better at 8, 9, and 10. And so we really tried to, with Drew, for an example, really tried to just really sharpen his racing IQ at that age, right? 8, 9, and 10, really tried to put him in situations and training and teach him a lot of drills, a lot of passing, a lot of why go here when you can go here, and really just, again, try to sharpen his skill set. And he's learned a lot, but there's also another side of racing, as you know, like being patient and just knowing things. And that's kind of where he's at now is just trying to, I think, balance everything. And it's tough. It's tough. He's got a good team behind him. He's got good parents. He's got all the again, the intangibles that you need to be successful. He has, but we'll see what happens when he gets on big bikes. I feel like he'll do just good, though. You know, I'm no doubt about it.
You never really know, in my opinion, until they hit puberty, what they're really
exactly.
Gonna be.
No doubt.
Until then, you just get them as good as possible, right? And that way, at least if it takes it, at least you did the work ahead of time. Because you've seen it. You've seen amateur phenoms that just
many
gone. And then you see these kids that never really had it. No one even noticed them. I mean, I'm watching Cameron McAdoo and Justin Cooper battling it out in the points lead in this championship. And I'm like, they weren't superstar amateurs. You know, I think things change around that as teenage years. So it'll be fun to watch, but man, that kid's, he's got some skills. I want to ask you this question. It'll be my last question, but I want you to take it where you want to go with it, because it relates to what you've learned as a racer, what you're learning now with Moto X Compound, and what you know about the sport, because obviously you're really smart about the sport. Where do you see things going in the next 5 to 10 years with the sport? And how can you at Moto X Compound kind of prepare for that with these group of kids you have? You got these 85-year-old, 60 or 85 cc, 65, some 50 kids. You're trying to groom them to have a shot at this thing, but you also got to know where the sport's going. Where do you think the sport is going in the next 5 to 10? And how can you make a difference with the kids that you have right underneath you?
Well, that's a great question. You know, as far as the sport, if you look at the trajectory of how things are going now, like, of course, there's a lot of variables in that question, you know, like as far as the economy and if things continue the way they are now in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be in my opinion, it's going to be a different layout of bikes. It's going to probably be electric. It's what it's probably looking like. I don't know that for a fact, but in 10 years, I kind of have a feeling that it might go that way. But as far as the riders go, that is going to be I feel like that's probably going to be the biggest, how do I say it? The biggest adjustment. Like when Ricky Carmichael raced, he was dominant, right? Like, but it was him and Chad Reed and maybe Kevin Windham. It was 3. And then you look at Bubba Stewart, and it was kind of him and some, maybe a couple more. And then it went to Ryan Villapoto. And then, but every little while there's more competition, I guess is the best way I could say it. You know, I know that, and even today, there's just so much more competition as far as anybody can win. There's 5 different winners or 6 different winners that theoretically could win a race. I feel like the way things are going and the way the bikes are evolving and the way the tracks are, it is going to be it's going to be hard to predict. It's definitely going to be hard for somebody to go on a tear and win 5 straight races. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be hard for, you know, for the pros, I guess I should say, because these riders with these cell phones and these these YouTube videos and social media, they're seeing what riders they're emulating so much, right? They're simulating, they're emulating, and they're advancing. And I'm telling you, like I said, yesterday I was in Texas and I watched the stars of tomorrow, I guess you could say, in the A class and the B class. And those kids are fast. They are
all good.
They are fast. They are very, very fast. And so I think in 5 to 10 years, we just kind of think that there's a handful that can win, but in 5 to 10 years, I think that literally anybody could win this thing. You know what I mean? And that's just the way it's going. But it's as far as a trainer, as far as I'm also a track promoter, the things that I can do to make sure that racing continues to grow and continues to get bigger is to continue to do grassroots camps. You know, we do a lot of beginner camps. We do a lot of fundamental based camps to get riders into the sport. And then I do a lot of local races also. I feel like more promoters need to do that. You know, everybody's trying to, as a promoter, I feel like a lot of us are looking for a home run. You know, everybody only wants to do races if it's a big race, right? But us as promoters, we also have to, again, have smaller races, you know, and it's going to take a lot of people getting on board in that direction also, because it you know, a lot of times people, Daniel, blame people like myself, facility owners. That's why they say that the sport is not as big as it once was, because there's so many people like myself that own facilities. And I don't see it that way. I see it as that these riders are getting faster, right? They're getting more prepared. They're just getting better. And facilities like Moto X Compound are, again, sharpening those skill sets for riders in the future, or when they go to a race to get better. But there's definitely some good side to having training facilities, and there's definitely some good sides to doing beginner-based camps, and there's definitely a plus for small races, man, grassroots races, and let's just grow that thing, you know. And again, I've been in this sport my whole life. I'm doing everything that I possibly can do in my area for it to continue to grow and be successful. And I just hope that other people will do the same.
Matt, you're crushing it. Thanks for coming on Beyond the Track.
Thank you.
Man, it was good to tell some stories. And again,
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. I know that you are running these races and you're trying to get more people involved, because I know how important racing is. And
thank you.
I just want to thank you for coming on, having some time.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing you probably in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We'll see you in
Well,
Atlanta.
I hope so. Listen, if you turn right out of Atlanta Motor Speedway and you go about 25 miles, Moto X Compound is on the right. We're on the same road as the Speedway. I invite you to come out and see us. Anybody.
I'm going to be there all week. It's a mini residency.
Yeah.
I'm going to come check out Moto X Compound and hang with
There you go. There you go. Sounds great. I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
All right. See you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.